Welcome back, I Survived readers, and today I'm going to read chapters 9.5 through 10 because the last time we tried to read, my sister came in and interrupted when I just needed 1.5 more chapters left to read. She came back. I literally had like 10 pages left to read, but then she came in and interrupted. So I'm so sorry about that, in case you were wondering what happened when she came in. Yeah, so she interrupted, so we're only going to read about 10 pages today, and then maybe later tonight I will read chapters 11 through 19, but I just want to get through the rest of chapters 1 through 10 because we never finished it. And that was on April 11th when I made that video, so I'm so sorry for not making the video in like a week. I was almost ready to give up, but then I was like, no, I can't. As you can see, the weather outside right now, pretty bad. Okay, so I got these books from the Easter Bunny. All these books, you will be seeing these in my future videos. Yep. But after I read I Survived the Shark Attack from 1916, I'm going to read I Survived Hurricane Katrina. I'm doing them in order. Alright, so let's start back up. I had to watch my last video to find out where I left off. Okay, so if you don't remember where I left off, go back to the last video. He had turned to swim back to the dock when, crash, he hit something under the water. Or something hit him. Hit him so hard in the chest he couldn't breathe. What was that? An old dock plank? A snapping turtle? Had Sid sneaked up on him and smacked him? The water around him looked funny, like it was filled with red smoke. Chet looked down in shock. His entire chest was scraped and oozing blood. What could have done that to him? A cold terror rose up inside him. He suddenly had the feeling that someone or something was nearby, watching him. And then he saw it. A gray fin. It glistened in the bright sun as it glided slowly toward him. He had to be seeing things. Or could this be another prank? Were the guys getting him back? But no, this was no tile. As it got closer, Chet could see the dark shape of an enormous fish, bigger than him, even bigger than Uncle Jerry. Two black eyes peered up through the water. Chet's heart stopped. Killer eyes. Chet took off toward the shore, pounding through the water, kicking with all his might. Finally, his feet touched the bottom. He was running now, his heart hammering, a voice booming through his mind. Get out of the water, get out of the water, get out of the water. Almost there, just a few more steps. He dove forward, landing hard in the dirt. He rolled onto his side and stared in disbelief. It was a shark, a massive shark. Dirty gray on top and pure white underneath. Its jaws snapped open and closed. The teeth, jagged and needle-sharp, were bigger than Chet's fingers, lined up in rows and curving inward. The shark thrashed as if it was trying to push itself up onto the bank. Chet wanted to get up and run, but he was frozen to the ground. Those killer eyes started unblinkingly at Jen. And then, with the flick of its tail, the shark thrust itself backward into the water. It hovered for a second on the surface. Then, with a whoosh of its tail, it disappeared back down the creek. Chapter 10. Chet rose to his knees and threw up. When he could stand, he staggered over to his clothes. His hands were shaking so badly that he could barely button his shirt. He shoved his feet into the boots, not even trying to lace them. And then on wobbly legs, his blood pounding in his ears, he ran up the hill and found his way to Main Street. He pushed past the ladies with their shopping baskets. He crossed the street, ignoring the honking motor car that swerved around him. A man in a buggy shouted at him to watch out. The horse whined. Chet barely noticed. He staggered into Mr. Colton's hardware store, tripping across the doorway and knocking over a display of watering cans. The clattering brought 3 customers to the front of the store. Mr. Colton hurried up from behind the counter. "Chet," he said worriedly, "what's wrong?" Chet opened his mouth, but he couldn't speak. "What happened?" Mr. Colton said. "Why is your shirt covered with blood? Are you bleeding? Who did this to you?" A small group of customers clustered around him, their eyes filled with concern. Finally, Chet got the words out. "A shark." "What?" Mr. Colton said. "A shark," Chet repeated. "Has there been another attack on the shore?" Mr. Colton said. "I didn't see anything in the newspaper." Chet shook his head. "There's a shark in the creek," he said. "I saw it. It crashed into me." The crowd erupted into loud laughter. Mr. Colton offered a sympathetic smile and a hand on his shoulder. "It's the heat, my boy. It's driving us all a little mad." He asked one of the customers to go into the back and bring Chet a drink. He led Chet through the laughing crowd and sat him on the stool behind the counter. A man handed Chet a tin mug of water. "Take a drink, son," Mr. Colton said. But Chet pushed it away, and water splashed onto a pile of seed catalogs. "We have to warn people." But Mr. Colton just shook his head, like Chet was a little kid who was sure he'd seen a unicorn galloping down the sidewalk. "There's so much garbage floating in the creek," Mr. Colton said. "It could have been plank from the dock, or a barrel, or a—" "No," Chet said. "It was a shark." "I think maybe all those pranks are getting to you," Mr. Colton said. Chet knew that he must sound crazy, that he could spend all day swearing that he'd seen a shark. Nobody would believe him. Why would they? A shark in the creek? It was impossible. Except that Chet had seen it with his own eyes. If he'd been a step slower, he'd be dead right now. Another name in the newspaper. "It's all right, son," Mr. Colton said. "How about I call Dr. J and he'll give you a ride home? You've never been in his motor car, have you?" Mr. Colton headed to the back of the store to use the telephone. The customers drifted away, shaking their heads and chuckling. No, nobody would believe it. Meanwhile, that shark was still in the creek, and then it hit Chet that there was one person in town who just might believe him, who might know what to do. He wasn't sure, but it was his best hope. He slid off the stool and rushed out of the store. "Chet," Mr. Colton called, "where are you going?" Chet didn't turn around. He had to find Captain Wilson. He'd wasted enough time already. Okay. So, what do we know so far? So we know that Chet and his friends are, Chet and his friends are very likely, and they keep playing pranks on each other, that there's a shark in the creek. But now they're going to be like the boy who cried wolf. Now, when Chet goes to tell his friends that there was a shark in the creek, they're not going to believe him, because they know that the last time he played a huge prank on them. And I don't think, do you think that they're going to believe him? Well, we'll find out in chapters 11 through 19. I'm either going to read them tomorrow or tonight. Okay, so I am on spring break. I know, don't blame me. It's kind of a late spring break, but it's kind of good, because if it was my opinion, I think it's better to have it like towards late April, because then you have like kind of like the whole month of May, and yeah. But if you have it like really early, like in early April or late March, then you'll have like, I don't think that it's good to have it like in either early April or late March. Okay, so let's keep talking about the book. So, we know that Chen and his friends keep playing different pranks on each other, and no one is believing him that there was a shark in the creek. Do you think that Captain will believe him? Well, we'll find out in chapters 11 through 19. So make sure that you tune in back tonight to see chapters 11 through 19. I really hope that you enjoyed the 1.5 chapter. We could have been reading chapters 11 through 19 if my sister hadn't interrupted that one day. That caught me off guard for everything. I probably would have been on the book of the Battle of Gettysburg already. But, okay, well, stay safe and healthy in a couple hours. Bye-bye.